Halo episode 6 just came out, and it's okay. As I probably figured, like, they were definitely not going to have another action scene for, or at least more action for the next episode, because, apparently they can only afford 2 episodes of action so far, and there's only part of it. But anyways, in this episode, we get to find out, arguably, a lot more about, I guess, the relationship between Halsey and Miranda. There's a lot more. They definitely, explore more, or like explain a lot more between like how the Spartans were created. They go into a lot more of the lore behind it, and how they were children who were kidnapped basically, and how they had real parents, and all the Spartans are basically, they got their memories wiped, and they had no idea that they had a real life before Spartan World and all that stuff. And one thing I feel like the show is definitely doing is, they're trying to build this rift between the Master Chief and Halsey. Even though in the games, I'm not sure if this was ever in the novels, but in the games, I would say that the Chief always trusted Halsey, like, for the most part. I can't think of a time where Halsey and the Chief were kind of were butting heads per se. Definitely Halsey was always, getting a lot of pushback from the UNSC, and where she just did whatever the heck she wanted, and she didn't care. Like, she was just like, I'm gonna go do this, go F yourself. Like, she just gave him the finger every single time. Like, she definitely gave this very, very arrogant and almost like a pompous attitude, because she's like, well, I created the Spartans that saved the world, so like, oh, like, you don't like my methods? Like, I don't care, because literally the Chief has, and the other Spartans have saved like probably millions of people, like, across the galaxy and whatnot, or at least the known galaxy. But anyways, like, let's get into the episode. So one of the first few things that we get to see more of is how they just deal with Makee, and like, I mean, on one hand, I'm really glad that they realize, like, at least John 117, or like the Master Chief, is very weary of who she is. It's kind of like, hey, we just had this like epic battle, or at least like, this crazy battle with the Covenant, and then all of a sudden they like they crap out a escape pod after they take the the artifact, and then you show up. It's like I feel like logically that doesn't even make sense. Like, unless like even if she escaped, the Covenant, it's like, oh, during the battle, like, I was able to escape or whatever. That's like, wouldn't you have done it during the battle, arguably? Because like, that's when the Covenant's like scrambling, and like, kind of like they're busy with the battle itself, maybe running around, regrouping or whatever. Like, you wouldn't do it as they're leaving per se, So like, I guess like it's just like a little too convenient. And most people see that, I guess, or at least, Master Chief sees that, but they're still like, oh, let's just be really nice to her because she's human, It's like, come on, man. Like, you can't see what it is. And I think some parts, like, as I was watching it, there's this one scene where basically between Makee and the Chief, where they talk about, let's see if I can find it here. I think it's somewhere towards the end. Yeah, like this, there's a scene here where she like kind of like, she knows that like the Chief is as someone who can activate the artifacts, right, and the keystones. So she starts like trying to tell him all these things about like, oh yeah, like I'm the same as you. I can also, activate all these things and whatnot. But everything that she says is like a clear sign that like, you were not a prisoner. Like, you were somehow taken care of by like the Covenant, and you don't see them as enemies. Like, even this line right here, which I didn't even accidentally threw up, like, but then the prophets taught me to stop fighting. It's like, okay, if considering the Covenant right now is like an all out, like, extermination of the human race, and they hate humans, they think they're like lowly creatures. Like, the one person that they have on their, like, and then, so most humans, hate the Covenant, obviously, at least all of them. And then, but the way she talks about them, it's like, okay, you call them prophets, like, by their proper names, and you talk about, and like, why would, and she talks about them in a way that's like not like, oh, I hate them. And also, like, why would prophets be teaching the human, all this stuff about their, their quest, basically, and their pilgrimage, which is, what they're trying to do, and their whole thing, if they're trying to kill all humans, like, why would they even want to just have one human? Like, even if it was just to study, like, human anatomy or whatever, they could have just got that from bodies or something, or they would have discarded her by now. But she says, oh, I've been kidnapped as a kid, and I've been kept a prisoner for, like, however long. It's like, that raises a lot of questions. Why would they keep you for that long? And she also mentions to Chief, they're like, oh, they call me the Blessed One. It's like, okay. Like, all fingers point to this girl cannot be trusted. Like, if these people are calling you the Blessed One, and like, and this girl is also referring to the Covenant in a way that's like not negative, it's like, all, like, everything should be pointing towards, like, yeah, we got a spy here. Like, we like, this girl has been manipulated to work with the Covenant, and now she's here to clearly, like, F us over. Like, that should be clear as daylight, like, at this point. But it doesn't seem like anyone's getting that. And the fact that she knows their language is like, hey, that should be something else that should be super obvious too. Like, if she was literally just a prisoner, like, in a cage, like, maybe, yeah, at one point or another, she might pick up on a few words or something of, like, the Sangheili language. But I would say for the most part, it's highly unlikely that, like, she would have such a good grasp on it, like, where, like, even when she was passed out, she's just, like, saying sentences. It's like, hello, like, clearly she's been taught the language, like, like through a school type situation, So I don't even know where they come up with, like, I mean, unless, like, and Master Chief is not stupid. Like, he's a soldier, or he's part of the UNSC fleet, and he is, the greatest Spartan ever. But he's not an idiot. Like, he's actually a very smart guy and whatnot. So, anyways, another thing that they definitely go into is just, like, all the political turmoil, like, especially with, seems like, I don't like this, there's this panel group people, like, these guys who, like, they seem like the kind of the bureaucratic, like, really douchey type of people who, like, they've been officers in the UNSC, they've never even probably touched a weapon, but they rose up in rank and power, so they feel like they can dictate how they fight the war, when it's like, you guys don't even know what's going on half the time. And for the first time ever, it seems like the Admiral here is actually on the, like, the side of Halsey and the side of, like, the Spartans. It's like, okay, the Spartans have literally saved your butts a million times, but, like, these fools are like, you know what, like, let's put them something, like, oh, let's like sideline them, or, like, let's put them out to pasture, because, like, they're now, like, a liability. It's like, how are they even a liability? Like, these people have literally saved your lives a couple, like, probably countless times, and are probably the one reason, like, you're still alive, arguably, at this point in the war, but, like, you feel like you somehow know better. It's like, it's always like that kind of weird struggle and whatnot. But eventually, something I mentioned earlier, John does realize that, or he finds out, between this conversation between him and Halsey, where he finds out just, what she did, in terms of how she created the Spartans, and also Miranda gets in here and she finds out as well, and this kind of like a funky. I like this interesting, like they have this like do this interrogation, and they have this room where people can listen in on the interrogation, and they can like physically be in the room, like at least their minds, instead of like what we have today was basically like a room next to a room behind a two-way glass, like that's like I guess our way of doing it, and then this is their way, which is like this crazy like mind implantation of like Matrix style, like let's put you physically in the room kind of thing. Like it seems a bit overkill, but it's kind of cool. And so John finds out and he flips out, and he's like pissed and whatnot. I was glad to see that between him and Kai, they kind of fixed their relationship a little bit, like because like they're both kind of in the same boat where they both are getting to know their past a little bit more, and plus like Kai's the only one that can actually relate to the chief in terms of like, oh man, I'm getting like some of my memories back, and I actually have my feelings, so like I can actually empathize, So I was actually kind of glad to see how in the end, like he's like, hey, you need to heal up and get better because I'm gonna need you. So I was like, oh, that's kind of nice. Yeah. A few things that was like, I guess a few Easter eggs that I liked later in the episode was bloody hell. Sorry. Yes, this episode. Oh yeah, here where we see, I guess, looks like they're creating the Spartan laser from Halo 3. So if you don't remember, this gun is basically like you charge up a laser, and I think it only lasts like 4 or 5 shots, which they kind of mentioned as an Easter egg in this episode, that basically because the batteries melt or something, so it only lasts 5 or 6 shots, and then you have to discard it. There's also in Halo Legends where I believe it was Fred who uses it to explode a few doors. But I like this room in general because like you see a bunch of their arsenal, which you have the battle rifles in the back, you have a few sniper rifles. Here you have a battle, or I think the DMR, or the DMR rifle right there, some pistols. Looks like here, I can't really tell what this one down here is. It's not a shotgun, but it has a magazine right there, so it feeds into it. So I can't tell. But I think, it's interesting how all the grenades are like being held by these like cups or something. But whatever. You see, another battle rifle in the back here. Or no, that's the DMR. I'm trying to look for just more. This looks like kind of like a module of some sort, maybe for shields. Can't tell what. I have no idea what that is. Maybe it's a drone. But yeah, I thought that was just like a cool scene in general. Further on, they in this scene here where Miranda finally gets access to basically her mother's laboratory, you get to see, looks like earlier versions of the Mjolnir armor. One for male, one for, I don't know if it's for female, but they just look different. I wish they kind of had a few more, kind of like almost like a line of like Iron Man armor, like that's like where you just have like a few of them and have a few nods to Halo 3 where you have all the different mods you can do, or like the different types of armor you can get. So you have the Hayabusa, and stuff like that. That would have been kind of dope, but I guess they only made 2 for whatever reason. And then this part, I feel like this one scene where we actually thought we would get some humanity from Halsey and Keyes and her daughter. Turns out it was all a ruse, and it was just, I think, for Halsey to get Miranda's biometrics. And I'm like, man, Halsey is just so sleazy at this point. Like, she literally, maybe there was some emotion in her, like maybe she didn't really mean what she said when it's like, I know I've been a terrible mother, but I never meant for you to get hurt. It looked like she was actually, somewhat honest for a change, but then, they reveal that like, oh, her assistant was behind, a pillar the whole time and was just like, she was only looking in her eyes to probably get her like, her eye scan or something like that. And I was like, oh god, like just when you thought like she couldn't get any lower, she does. So and then the big, I guess, reveal at the end of all this is basically they find Halo. So at the end of this, or towards the end of this episode, Chief, interacts with the Keystone again, and it like overloads his brain to the point where it almost kills him. But then I guess he hits a point where I guess he follows Maki's like advice of like, just let it, don't let it or just let the memories and like all the image and the visions take over, and they take over to a point that now he is on Halo. And you can definitely see that here. And you see like in the back, like kind of almost, it looks like a mountain, but it's actually the Halo ring, and which is something very iconic in Halo. So like whenever Master Chief is on a Halo ring, like you can look around the scenery, and like you'll see like the Halo ring where it like kind of like goes up into the distance. So you can tell and you can see. So now they're on Halo, and it's like, cool, finally we get to see a Halo, but he's only there like metaphysically, not actually on the Halo. He just sees it. A little weird, a few weird things about that scene is that there's like a sun for some reason, like that's like actually over here to the left. Like there's no star at Halo. Like the rings are just constantly daylight. I don't like, and there's no like, they didn't put like an artificial star near the Halo to simulate day. It's just there. But I guess you need some kind of light source in order for that to make sense. So both him and Maki are on the Halo. They make it seem like there's only one when there's like 9 of them, I think. So I don't know why they make it seem like there's only one, and and the weapon is like, only in one place or whatever. But then they have this like really weird scene at the end where they like meet up each other, and yeah, like Chief touches her like as if like they're gonna have like a romantic relationship. I don't know. Like this part, like at the end, I was like, oh man, Halo. And then they had to ruin it with like this creepy thing going on because like, they have this like weird gene that like makes them, the reclaimers of like the Forerunner artifacts. But yeah, like they try to insinuate, I feel like they're trying to insinuate, yeah, they have like a romantic relationship at this point. So I don't know what the heck the deal is, which I was just like, no, please don't go down that route where like he like starts like falling for her or something. It'd be better if they want like a love story, just have him fall in love with Kai or something. I don't know, just not her. Like come on, no one even likes her at the end of the day. So I hope that's the case, but that was kind of the big stuff in this episode. There's really not much else. You can see more of Halo in the back here, which it's kind of a nice nod to all things. Yeah, but like, why is there a sun? I don't get it. But overall, the episode, definitely dealt a lot more into story. I didn't hate it, but there wasn't there was no action in this one. But I'm glad that they, dove more into a little bit of the relationships and the complications with that. But at this point, there's only 3 episodes left, so I'm guessing all the first season is gonna them discovering where Halo is, and then season 2 is gonna be like them on Halo maybe, or going to Halo, the Halo or whatever installation of this ring is. So we'll see. But overall, I would say this episode I've had like a 3 out of 5, 2.5 out of 5. It wasn't like, it's the first time I'm giving actual grade for this, but overall it's okay. We'll see what happens in the next 3 episodes or the last 3 episodes. But overall, there's a lot more context to the story, which I guess you have to give for the audience who aren't Halo initiated, so to say. But at the same time, we'll see how that goes. Thank God there was no any more story with Quan Ha, because no one gives a crap about that story. But I'm guessing in 7 and 8 and 9 there's going to be a lot more about them, which you can't just axe out their storylines out of nowhere. So we'll see how that goes. But overall, that's kind of how this episode went. We'll see what happens next week. I'm gonna write it out, and yeah. All right, guys, thank you for watching, and take it easy.